Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another G Crypto video. I'm your host Seth, and in today's video I want to keep talking about that great game that I've been playing so much of, which is Gods Unchained. Let's get into it. The thing that I wanted to talk about today is Gods Unchained, and more specifically, the god powers that you have at your disposal when you pick your decks. Now, if you're not familiar with Gods Unchained, I'm doing kind of a video series about it. It's a game that I've been getting into a lot recently. It is an online card game that is an NFT-based game. It's a lot of fun. It is, one of the heads of development is one of the guys who was from Magic the Gathering Online. It's exploding in popularity. It went from 10,000 daily active users in November of 21 to now I think over 50,000 daily active users. It's so fun. I've been playing a lot of it, and I mean, that's pretty much all I can say. But I've got a lot more videos coming out about this particular game because I'm just enjoying it so much and I enjoy talking about it. I think I love the strategy of it, the deck building, the sort of meta of it all. It's a lot of fun, and I find myself playing it like in my free time all the time. And again, I've just enjoyed it, which is what I've been saying on this channel. You know, the best NFT games are the ones that you enjoy playing. I mean, I'm not really here to make money. I'm just here to have fun. And if I make some money, it's a nice little side effect. In the game of Gods Unchained, you guys, there are 6 gods. When you go to pick a deck, you pick which god is going to be the patron of that deck. And then you get access to cards that belong to that patron. And so there's a lot of different strategies and a lot of different types and themes of cards that go with each god. But each god also has what is called a god power. And it is basically kind of an at-will, once per turn feature that you can use in a match. And not all of these are created equal. So I wanted to take a second today to go through each of these gods, each of the gods that are available to you, talk about their powers and tier them out, and basically talk about which ones I think are best for which god. So without further ado, you guys, let's just get into it. So first up on the list, we have Ludia, the goddess of deception. Now, each god has 3 powers, right? A choice of 3 powers, and each of them has a different mana cost. But Ludia has, as every other god, 3 choices. And the first is Thievery. What Thievery allows you to do is to copy a 1-cost mana card from your opponent's deck and add it to your hand. Now, this is a really solid god ability, and it's actually the one that I used a lot of at first when I was using my deception decks because I thought it was the best. And it's really good because there's a lot of really solid 1-cost mana magic cards out there, and if you're up against a magic deck, right, an Elyrian God of Magic deck, they have some really good spells that you can get for 1 mana. So this is a solid choice, and it actually opens up options for cards that you wouldn't normally get access to because, you know, they're not in the deception sort of theme. So solid choice, and I think I would put this solidly in the B tier, maybe A tier, honestly. But definitely a solid choice, and one that you wouldn't regret doing if you were to run a deception deck. The second ability, though, of the deception deck is Orpheo's Distraction, and this is what we're talking about. This ability arguably might be top 2 of all the god powers, period. It's fucking goated. What you do is you're able to deal 1 damage to a creature and give it hidden until the end of the turn. Now, the 1 damage is fantastic and it's fine, but it's just the gravy on the pork chop here, because what you're really after is the hidden bit. If a creature is hidden, it is not a viable target for attacks. So what you can do is this ability allows you to bypass frontline creatures from your enemy. That's right, because if you use 1 damage and you give a frontline creature hidden until the end of the turn, you can't attack them and you just bypass them and go straight to the opponent's god. So more than once, I have used this to completely bypass a very powerful frontline creature like a Cyclops Defender or something like that, where you just deal 1 damage, it gets hidden, and you can go right around it and smash into your opponent's god. This ability is S tier, no questions asked. Arguably, like I said, top 2 in the game. The third and final ability for the Goddess of Deception is Flip. What this allows you to do is basically draw 2 cards and then shuffle 2 that you have in your hand back into your deck. Now, if it just allowed you to draw 2 cards, S tier hands down, but you have to shuffle 2 back, so it doesn't really give you any more cards. And one of the things that this might help in certain situations where you ended up randomly with a bunch of high mana cost cards early in the game in your hand. The trouble is that you select your god power before you select your first 3 cards, and you have all those opportunities. You have 4 opportunities, I think, to replace the first 3 cards you drew. So I just don't ever see this coming up, and frankly, I don't think I've ever seen it used. So I'd put it at D tier because it's just not good. Next up, we have Malissus, Goddess of Death. And first up, we have Soulburn. Soulburn is, I think, 1 mana cost, and it just allows you to deal 1 damage to both gods. Honestly, pretty ass. Like, I don't want to take damage. If it did 1 damage to the opponent's god, maybe I could see it being okay, but as is, not good. D tier, hands down. But next up, just as we did with Ludia, the second option in Malissus's loadout is awesome. It's called Blood Ritual. It's 2 mana cost, and what it does is it allows you to destroy a creature with 1 health or less, and then heal your god for 1. This thing comes in handy constantly. I can't tell you the number of times where you can basically use it and calculate it out so that you can bring a creature down to 1 health and then just use this and destroy it. So handy, so awesome. It really handy for avoiding basically sacrificing creatures. This one's S tier, hands down. And finally on Malissus's list, we have Nefuru's Sacrifice. And this one, not great. You take 2 damage and you get to draw 1 card. It's trash. D tier, no questions. But that wraps up Malissus, God of Death. So like you said, so far it's kind of an even balance. You got a couple of god powers in both Ludia and Malissus that are pretty solid and actually really good, and then you have other ones that are not good at all. But moving on to Thariel, God of Light. First up on Thariel's list is just called Heal. It's a 2 mana cost god power, and it just allows you to heal one of your creatures for 2. This is a great god power. It comes in handy all the time, especially because it stacks really well with some of the pre-existing abilities of Light. Light as a theme is a lot about like increasing health, giving lots of healing, bonuses and bumps. I have a deck called Nonstop Buffs that's my light-based deck, and it's basically all cards that like increase health, increase strength, and just like continuously heal, so that you can have a lot of low mana cost cards that you can bump up all their health and strength. So really solid ability. I would put it in the S tier as far as god abilities go, because it can save your creatures a lot. Next up on Thariel's list, we have Summon Acolyte. 2 mana cost, you get a 2/2 Acolyte. You just basically summon a creature. It's the first one we've come across. There's a couple of other god powers that just allow you to like summon creatures. This is the best of them because it gives you a 2/2 Acolyte, and it's solid, but not the best choice. I would give this probably B tier. And last up on Thariel's list, we have Lysander's Honor. And what this allows you to do, it's 2 mana cost, and it allows you to decrease an opposing creature's strength by 1. Now, I started experimenting with this, and it's come in handy quite a bit. I mean, like, especially early in the game when you have like 2 attack, 3 health creatures or whatever, and you want them to die on your frontline creature, you can use Lysander's Honor, bump their strength down to 1, make it so that your frontline creature doesn't die from a single attack, and you kill their creature as well. So this is pretty good so far in my experience. I haven't played with it enough yet to give a solid recommendation, but I would put it right now solidly in B tier. It's good, not fantastic. He's got one that's pretty solid S tier, healing, and then he's got 2 solid B tier abilities. So that's Thariel, and he's got some good ones. Next up on the list, we have Elyrian, God of Magic. Elyrian has some pretty good ones and one really bad one, just like a lot of them. The first is Foresee. You spend 1 mana and you get to just foresee the next card in your deck. Honestly, it's bad. I have never used it. I don't see it really coming in much handy. I mean, sometimes it's handy to see what you've got next coming down the line so you can plan, but there's just so many spells that give you better abilities that are the same mana cost, like Illuminate, which is a great magic card. So I'd call this C tier, maybe. Probably D. Next up, we have Mage Bolt. This is, in my opinion, hands down, Illyrian's best god ability. It's just deal 1 damage. Simple, straightforward, very effective. Similar to Blood Ritual from Malissus, God of Death, this one just lets you deal 1 damage for 2 mana, and that can come in handy a lot in terms of destroying creatures. So, and it's just no questions asked, 1 damage. So, solid ability. I would put this solid A tier. A tier. It's good, but not, top flight. And finally, third on Illyrian's list, we have Pallas's Genius. So each of the gods, if you haven't noticed, each of the gods have a god ability that is related to their champion, right? So this is Illyrian's, champion ability, and it is not great in my opinion. It's 3 mana cost, which is pretty steep, and it lets you pull a random 1 mana cost magic card into your hand. There's a lot of really great 1 mana magic cards out there, especially in Illyrian's deck, right? So it's tough, but personally, I don't see it. The mana cost is too high for me, and there are so many other cards that let you draw magic cards from your deck, whether that's their Roar ability or whether it's just a thing like Illuminate, which is a 1 magic cost card, lets you draw 2 cards or deal 2 damage. Or it's for, I don't know, I don't remember. But point is there's a lot of other abilities that let you do this, and for 3 mana to get 1 card, I don't see it being that great. If it was 2 mana, it would be better, but 3 mana, pretty steep price to pay for a 1 mana cost magic card. So I'd put it B tier at best, probably C in my opinion. Next up on our list, we have Aeona, Goddess of Nature. So Aeona has some interesting god abilities. Hers are like mediocre all across the board. First up, we have Flourish. It's 1 cost mana and you heal one of your creatures for 1. It's fine. It's not as good as Thariel's because it's 2 mana for 2, so I guess kind of a 1-for-1 deal here. But healing 1 just doesn't have the same oomph that healing for 2 does because so many creatures have at least 2 attack. So I would rate it B tier. You just get to heal one of your creatures for 1, which is, fine. Next up, we have Animal Bond. Animal Bond allows you to summon a 1/2 Badger with Confuse. So another one of the summoning sort of, summon a random creature god-like abilities. As you can see, there's a lot of themes, like a lot of the god abilities are very similar, just flavored differently depending on the god. This one lets you summon a 1/2 Badger and it has Confused. It's fine. It's not as good as Thariel's because that's 2 mana for a 2/2 Acolyte that doesn't have Confused. So I would put it B tier. It's fine, depending on the situation, it's okay. And last up, we have Selena's Mark. Selena's Mark is basically 2 mana cost and you get to deal 1 point of damage, which sounds great, but it's to a random creature. Now, don't get me wrong, still comes in handy, especially early game. In a recent match, I remember I used it quite a bit and it worked out in my favor a lot. Especially when you're down to if you have 2 creatures, one of them has 1 health, you can pop this off at the start and hope that it kills the creature you're hoping it does. But it's just not as predictable as Mage Bolt, which is direct target. So I would put this B tier as well. In fact, I think all of Aeona's god abilities are B tier, but with Aeona and nature decks, you're not there for the god power. You're there for the regen, for all the cards. Nature decks are pretty kick-ass so far from what I've seen, and they can do some wild shit, like lots of summoning, lots of healing, lots of buffs. They're good. My nature deck is one of my better decks. So anyway, not here for the god powers. They're okay all across the board. And finally, last but not least, we come to Auros, God of War. Now, Auros has a very mixed bag of god abilities. I mean, the war decks are very aggro and his god abilities reflect it. So first up, you have Enrage. Enrage, you deal 1 damage to a creature to give it +1 strength. It's 1 cost mana, so it's fine. There's 1 mana cost cards, like I think Deadly Arsenal is a war card. It costs 1 mana and it gives the creature +1/+2 health. So there's just cards that do way better things than this, and dealing 1 damage to a creature to give it +1 strength is, in my opinion, not that great. And I'd put it, C tier, maybe D. It's just not good. I almost never see it used unless you're a newbie. But after Enrage, we get to Slayer. And Slayer might be the best god ability in the game, bar none. What Slayer allows you to do, it's 2 mana and you get to deal 2 damage to your opponent's god. No questions asked. The only thing that can stop it is if your god has Protected. And even then, it's a great way to remove that from the god itself. This is arguably the best one. I would say this and Orpheos Distraction from Deception are the 2 best god abilities. Maybe Blood Ritual as well. I could throw that in the top 3, but this is hands down top 2 god abilities. I see this used. Every war deck that's ever beat me in a match uses this ability, and I've won several matches thanks to this god ability when it came down to it. And like I said, in kind of the final stages of a game. Slayer is just so good. 2 mana, 2 damage to the god, no questions asked. Frontline bypassed, it's fantastic. And this is the one you want to use if you're running a war deck. Just blanket, hands down. But we have to talk about Auros' final god ability still, which is Valka's Presence. This lets you summon a 1/1 Valkner Raider. It's, a Viking, 1/1, I think it's 1 mana cost. Again, not great as far as the summoning things go. Thariel's is better because it gets you a 2/2 and for the same cost. So personally, I just don't think this one's good. It's from, summoning a creature is not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. There's just other abilities that are better. So I would probably put this B tier, low B tier, maybe C tier, just because the 2 other summon abilities that's Thariel and Animal Bond from Aeona's nature deck, they're both better because you get better creatures with more health or more attack. So I would put this again, solid B tier, maybe C tier, not that great. And next to Slayer, it just pales in comparison. Overall, I think the best god powers, like I said, are Ludia with Orpheos Distraction. God, so good. 1 damage and deal hidden to the creature so you can bypass it. Just chef's kiss, right? Auros, Slayer, fantastic, just auto 2 damage to your god, super fantastic ability, and arguably the best one in the game. I think those 2 are the top 2, and then, trailing in at 3rd is Blood Ritual from Malissus, where it's destroy a creature with 1 health or less, which is great because it's just destroy, it's not just deal 1 damage, it's destroy, which is really, really handy and comes in handy all the time. But this is it. This is my list of all of the gods' powers put into these tiers. As you can see, it's a decent spread. You know, some god powers, they're not all created equal. Some are undoubtedly better than others. But I hope you like this. I hope that it helps you out in your upcoming matches when you're playing Gods Unchained. If you like the video, make sure to like the video. It helps us out tremendously. Drop it a thumbs up. We're a new channel here, so trying to grow as best we can and trying to bring you guys some valuable content. Speaking of, we've got some more coming up. Lots more Gods Unchained videos that I think you'll enjoy. So if you enjoyed this one, like it, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any other videos that are coming up. And as always, game it till you make it. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Bye-bye.